Welcome, everybody. I'm Judd Watts, Global Alliance Manager with Teradata. I appreciate you joining us today. Today's an exciting opportunity to listen to the insights, experiences of the state of Missouri as they tap into data warehouse automation. And within a governmental agency, you can imagine the size and scope of many of the tasks that they have to accomplish. We're fortunate today to have Ray Shell with us, leading IT specialist with the state of Missouri. Some of the things that they were tackling with their numerous mainframe and independent data systems in place. The state of Missouri Revenue Department, they struggle to answer a lot of questions relative to their motor vehicle and driver's license data. To make that data available and more accessible for decision making, the IT launched a new initiative to design, develop, and deploy and integrate this data into an existing Department of Revenue enterprise data warehouse structure. This time, they were using a new approach, data warehouse automation. As we hear from Ray Shell, we'll hear about the lessons learned during the implementation, how the data warehouse and data warehouse automation has helped the organization speed up both the depth of information it can provide its business users, as well as the delivery time to the answers those users seek. And the next slide, quickly introducing, joining Ray today, of course, myself, but sort of our MC, leading global architect is Jack Howard. He'll be taking this on as a bit more of a question and answer or an interview rather than a formal presentation. So with that as well, too, we welcome your questions as you listen to Ray and Jack in their interview. You're welcome to use that Q&A function right there within your screens. It's sort of one of those icons at the bottom in orange, somewhere there in the middle, that looks sort of like comic book callouts. But that's where the Q&A box is. And as you think of things, by all means, feel free to fill that in. We're delighted to answer your questions. Ray has a tremendous amount of expertise in this area, as he sought to provide a lot better visibility into the Department of Motor Vehicles driver's license data and their tax data warehouse. So with that, I'll pass things along to Jack Howard. Give a little bit of insight to Jack Howard, too, familiarity to our Teradata customers and Teradata field teams. Jack was a customer of Teradata's for many, many years, and he was, in fact, an employee of Teradata for a number of years, was recognized as the leading solutions architect in the manufacturing industry at that point in time, and he's been with WhereScape now for 5, 6, 7 years or so. So it's excellent to have him and his Teradata perspective on this call as he interviews Ray. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks a lot, Judd. Yeah, thanks, Judd. Well, yeah, thanks, everyone. And Ray, I really appreciate this time with us. And really like to just kind of talk about what you've done. Where were you before, what did you done and where were you before you came to the WhereScape family? Could you just tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Sure. I started, actually I've been a state employee for now 13 years and actually started out doing unemployment claims and quickly transitioned over to working at the Department of Health, where I did a lot of data work there as a person, as a user, so not necessarily as an IT person. And so I got a lot of experience doing work with transforming data for personal use, for use in data analysis projects, and then working with our birth certificate and death certificate data at the Department of Health. So I had a lot of data systems knowledge before transitioning into IT, and that's where I got started working with WhereScape and working with Teradata, trying to do this motor vehicle data warehouse project. So it's been a long journey, but all of it along the way has been working with data. Now, as an IT professional, having that perspective of knowing what people want to see as a customer as we're trying to drive decision making in the Department of Revenue.
Great, great. Hey, Ray, how many people are on your team?
Let's see. I'm trying to, I think we've got a team of about 8 or so. And so a lot of what other folks do is more on the taxation side. I'm the primary person doing the motor vehicle and driver's license data for the EDW.
Okay, great. So how does your team work with the database administrators? Or is that a separate group, or is that in your team?
Right. Our state ITSD is an enterprise department, meaning that we work with all of the departments within the Missouri state government structure. So our team is specific for Department of Revenue. However, we have several units inside of ITSD that are enterprise units. So our database administrators are enterprise over the entire state. So they do all the different departments. So we work with them, but understanding that their time is split up across the entire enterprise.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then just kind of looking at what you guys are up to going forward. What are you guys looking at from and how you plan on moving forward in the future with your teams and projects?
Well, right now there's a couple of different things in terms. For motor vehicle side, it's not so much about putting in more data, but again, enhancing what they're getting out of it. And so it was quite a bit of a task to start putting things in, to have things available. And now that was done in a short compressed time period. But now it's really understanding what you have. It's sort of when you move into a new house, you're moving everything in just as quick as you can, and then now it's the time to unpack all those boxes and see what you put in places and try to get to some of those things that, I'll get to that once I move in. Well, it's now getting back to some of that list of put-off projects to do. Great.
So just kind of looking about at the whole technology stack that you guys are working with at the state, could you tell us a little bit about what kind of systems you have there with Teradata and what feeds them?
Sure. So our data warehouse group has been together for more than 5 years, and that was done with a normal process for the tax side. And so right now, everything over there, most of everything is ran through normal processes. There's things that are grabbed from different extracts. There's grabbed from different loads that are put in on a daily basis, and those things have been going through. We now get mainframe extracts. We get DB2 things. We get SQL Server loads for our motor vehicle side. And so all this stuff is going on an everyday basis. And so we have both sort of systems in place, both using RED as well as using more standard original data warehousing approaches in Teradata.
Great. So, I know we met in the beginning of the project, and I just kind of like to talk about the sort of the before WhereScape and the now with WhereScape kind of idea. And what kind of projects are you kind of looking at being better for automation in the go forward strategies that you guys are putting together?
Sure. So one of the biggest things that we can look at is how data changes. So we have mainframe data that we keep for several of our systems. And so what we can do is through using historying techniques that RED helps automate, we can show over time where the mainframe might have something that's completely deleted or something that's changed. We can show the steps from how we got from something, say, a couple weeks ago to where it is now, whereas you're only getting the one point in time reference if you just look at the mainframe. And that's where things were in the past, where things were grabbed for data analysis purposes out of those source systems. So if you're running a mainframe query, that's fine, but that's also going to be time, actual clock time, and expense, because the mainframe isn't exactly free, so those expenses get billed back. So trying to reduce those costs in both, trying to pull things out that maybe would have been unwieldy to pull out of the mainframe, out of VB2, bringing it over to Teradata, and being able to run those things, say, in something like SSRS or even Tableau.
All right. And then, just kind of looking at just maybe the last question about the non-automated side.
Sure.
Do you see a difference in productivity between what you're doing now and what you guys have been traditionally doing?
Yeah, we have had some things been converted from the old ways to red, and on those, I'm finding that it doesn't take nearly as much to get through the process. It might be, oh, okay, I need to go change a parameter as opposed to going through a script and finding where these things need to be changed and then hard coding in new values where those places are and then resaving them. That said, there is some, familiarity breeds some savings. So it's one of those that now that we're getting into one iteration pass for some of these things that might have been a yearly process, we're starting to see some of those savings as opposed to, okay, well, I know how this was done before, or I've done this the last 4 times. I know exactly where to go, and I know exactly what to fix. So there's some different things in there, but in terms of things that are brand new, I find that things are brought up to speed a little bit more quickly than if you had to go through from scratch and put everything in. But again, everything with Red is about bringing in the stuff that Red needs to know. And so with something as large as some of these other systems, it may take a while. And so you have to weigh those costs and benefits.
Got it. Yeah, great. And so, on the motor vehicle project that we worked on, what was kind of driving the need to do this project, and can you just kind of share the challenges that maybe were faced up front?
Sure. The need was driven that we needed to be able to get data more quickly and more efficiently, and we knew that there is a sunset period for some of our mainframe systems to go away. So, that's still out there in the future, but that date was coming up closer. So they were looking at trying to get, and they meaning our IT administration and Department of Revenue, looking at maybe trying to get a new data warehousing solution. They looked at trying to do things where they would bring in maybe a group of Teradata developers to set up the foundations and get that going, and they started looking at some of those costs. And then the idea of WhereScape and maybe having a short kick-started period to have some help come in and then have our IT staff use Red and take over. And so once they looked at the budget they had available and looked at the time that they had, they selected Red, and that's what they chose and went through. And so that short period has really, a lot of work got done in a short amount of time. And so that's also why we're still catching up and figuring out exactly where all the benefits can be, especially for things that, questions maybe that have never been asked before. And so it takes a while to get those questions formalized and set out of, oh, I think this is something we'd like to know.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like you've been able to achieve the goals of the project from, business outcome? Are you guys seeing the insights that you were looking for as a result of that work?
Oh yeah, there's definitely things, the reports in terms of SSRS reports, in terms of data that was taking jobs that was taking months or weeks to do, and taking some actual manual labor to go and maybe grab some things from different systems and then try to do access work to join that all together, is now taking a matter of minutes because all of those pieces are now being brought into the same data warehouse and can be joined together and can be presented in reports in a much more efficient fashion.
Great, great. And then just kind of thinking about life afterwards, I mean, it sounds like things are going along nicely. But when we were in the project, maybe we could just talk a little bit about how long things took as we kind of did that DMV project. How long did it take us to get things done? And I know it was you and me and a couple of other people, and then the Clariview team. Maybe we could just talk a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah. So we had about 2 to 3 months initially of work where you guys came in. We had some contractors, and I was shadowing those folks as they came in, and so picking up some tools and tips for Red as they tackled that a certain number of tables. And then I was there to help start filling in those ones that were not deemed as high priority to get done right away, but still needed to be done to start filling in those holes. So in some ways, the project is over, but we still learn things all the time about this motor vehicle data because a lot of it is in mainframe situations. So when you put it in, okay, we can put it in, and then when you look at it and see that maybe it doesn't come out the way that you go back to it, and then, oh, well, you need to know this, and then that doesn't show up on just a COBOL layout. And so then things will have to be redone again. And so we have a lot of things, I think, in very good shape, but things are always open to be re-examined because new information comes out of these data sources or things have loaded correctly, but we didn't know 100% of all the things that go behind it. So it was definitely an intense few months. And then as I came up to speed, learning about Red and the tool, that learning curve started to graduate out, and so we were able to really take care of a lot of tables in a short amount of time.
What would you have done differently, if had you known what you know now when you began the project? Is there anything that pops out that, like, I wish I would have known X?
So, trying to maybe insist a little bit more on getting folks to discuss data before we put it in. I think in a lot of ways, or at least for our team, there had been several archive initiatives on the tax side. There's been several things, and so we had worked with mainframe programmers on different spots. But then going to the motor vehicle side, the mainframe folks were not used to doing these things, and neither were the business users. And so maybe having more of that discussion, more of that dialogue up front might have made some of the discovery process a little bit easier. But in the end, what happened was we got those relationships started, having that communication about, okay, well, I'm getting this from you. This is what I'm seeing when I put it into the EDW. Is that what I should be translating it to, and getting that discussed out of, okay, when things go through the process, this is how it's supposed to look on the other end.
Just thinking about it, maybe from a different perspective, how would you guys have tackled this without Red and its automation? What would your typical process been, and how long do you think that would have taken?
Well, if we hadn't done it through Red, it would have been doing normal fast loads and BTECs and getting things together. There would have been a lot less sophistication in trying to get the data to something where it's making more sense, or it's more optimized for the data warehouse environment. It would have been a lot more difficult to do some of the things that I was able to do inside of Red by maybe having some buttons pushed and having at least Red generate the starter for a procedure, and then where I would go in afterwards and take that and customize it to fill in the last little bits that might not have a place. That would have been a lot harder to write anything, especially given some of the length, number of variables that we deal with in some of these files, and just over the course of a number of files. I don't think there would have been any way. By and large, I had pockets of help here and there. By and large, most of this I did on my own, and so there would have been no way I would have gotten from the start of the project to the end of the project in the amount of time that we tried to do it without some automated help.
Got it. Yeah. How about documentation? How's the documentation deliverables working for you?
We have them. So there's kind of different types of documentation. There's documentation as far as what technical documentation, and then there's documentation for folks outside. So Red handles the documentation very well in terms of the generated PDFs that it can make. for folks, I think, outside the organization who want to know, okay, well, where's all this stuff at and how is this organized? Where I think Red really does well, and you can get, I get buy-in from folks who are skeptical on the IT side of using it, is using the projects and folder structure and showing where, okay, you have this project all together. It's now, here's where this procedure is at. Here's where this load is at. And not having to go and maybe scroll across a whole bunch of different folders that you have set out on an ETL server, where you might have somebody who put it in one place as opposed to another, or trying to remember what the name of the actual file, the actual script file is that goes with this process. It's all there together inside of Red, inside the metadata. And so that sort of internal documentation, that sort of organization, that really shines out for me as something that really people grab a hold of real quickly.
Just to draw the contrast, when you think about doing this on other systems without using Red, what does that look like in comparison?
Well, so some of that is we have two different scheduler systems that's going on right now. We use Oracle Data Integrator, and we also use Cisco Tidal Enterprise Scheduler. And so a lot of, if there's a table I don't know anything about, then you have to go to Oracle to see how it gets loaded and maybe from where. A lot of that stuff is inside of there, and I'm not a big expert on ODI, but a lot of that stuff is in there, but then sometimes you've got to go and kind of follow the breadcrumbs. Okay, well, where is this file at, and where's that file at? And that can work.
Yeah, kind of a manual. You got to start doing detective work to put it together. Yeah,
right.
great.
And then if you're changing that, which is fine, then you've got to go and find exactly where it is in that thing and then make that change at that one line. So there's just a lot more looking and searching.
Great. So, just from the results, I think that if I recall, I can't remember the exact number of tables. Could you give us kind of a ballpark, a number of metrics of what were handled?
So in the initial project, it was a couple hundred tables, but as we've added things and we've expanded out for that second tier, and as other things, we have another system that's a more normalized system, so it has a lot of tables for one system. We're over 900 tables between our motor vehicle and our tax side that we load on a nightly basis through Red. So it handles quite a bit of work, and all of it goes through with, if there's an issue, you can go and track all of that, but rarely an issue once you get it set the way it needs to be.
Great. Yeah, wow. I mean, like that, yeah, I just kind of think about from 0 to 900 in, basically a year.
Year and a half, yeah.
Oh, that's great. So just kind of looking at this, do you have any post-implementation review kind of thoughts about this? Like how would you, share, retrospectively advice for other people kind of facing similar types of projects?
Well, I mean, if you're going to, look at anything like this, obviously try something out on it. I mean, there is things for knowing how you're used to doing things, and there is definitely if you're going to do something in Red, there is some things that you're going to do Red's way, and it's going to understanding how Red wants to do something, and then figuring out where you can customize within that framework takes a little bit. Takes a little bit to get used to, but once you get used to it, once you understand how it works, concepts, modules, you can do things very quickly once you understand how certain things need to be done. And so that's been the big thing is if you're trying to do something maybe very quickly that is just a very minor change of something that you have already all scripted out, because I know there's sometimes for me, if I want to go make a view and I have some code I've already used, I just want to add one quick column to it. I don't have to add anything into it. It can be real tempting to just, okay, well, I'll just submit the create view and just go with it inside a SQL Assistant, and that's fine. But then you pay for it if you don't keep red in line with that, because then if you're wanting to go use that column and other things later on, red's not going to know about it. And so that's really been, kind of a thing of you get out of using an automated tool what you put into it.
Got it. So in the future, I mean, just thinking about, you've made a ton of progress and accomplished a massive amount of work with a very small team in a year and a half. What's the future look like, and what do you think are going to be the things you want to accomplish both with your team and from technology perspective? What are you looking at in the future on those two?
Well, a lot of it, is driven by Department of Revenue, and we do this for them, and so this is something that they drive the train on some of this. So for me right now, is I don't have anything particularly, lined up. We're looking for their guidance. We have, suggestions here or there, things that, they might want to add, things that, we want to continue to put in. But now it's more of trying to make sure maintenance and making sure that the things that we have, helping them understand the things that they already have that are working on a daily basis, and two, making sure, just making sure that what we are loading and we're displaying matches up with their expectations, because in a lot of ways, because they have been used to and dependent on mainframe querying, they do not have a lot of ways of independently verifying numbers that they receive. And so it's very much of lining up things old and new of, okay, well, this is what we run this with the mainframe as a source, how does that compare to the EDW, and just trying to figure out some of those time shift cycles, because we get extracts at a certain time and then the mainframe updates at another time. So just making sure that, okay, we're seeing things in a time delayed fashion, but it's not incorrect, it's just time delayed. So that's more of, I think, where we're headed, is making sure, verifying what we have.
Got it. Yeah, sounds good. And then, just from the team perspective, any comments about, bringing the team along and what that's looked like?
It's a steady progress. I think the more people use it, and just like any software, if you don't use the software, then you're not gonna get that familiarity with it. And so it's hard to do test work. Just okay, I'm gonna doodle and do something that has no bearing on anything inside the job. So we have been trying to bring along other folks where they've had the training, but maybe not a lot of experience using it. And so I've been shadowing, mentoring folks as we've gotten some other new systems to bring in. Okay, well, here you can do this, and I'll talk you through it, and we'll help you get through the whole life cycle from extract to scheduling, putting it on the enterprise scheduler for a regular load. And so it's been coming along. People are getting it. People are understanding it. But again, it still takes, I can't remember, 30 or 40. It takes several cycles of getting that whole cycle down of how you're going to do something in red, and understanding, okay, here's where the divergence points can be. Here's where you could do something maybe a little bit different that might improve the process, as opposed to doing the same thing every time.
Got it. Yeah, so just kind of, looking down the kind of the ideas about, the final 3 tips. Just want to talk through those a little bit and let people know what we're thinking there.
Sure, and we've touched on these here just a bit. Even though we had some lists, it's really good to have everybody on the same page as far as a project goes. So even in the project we had one set of lists for the contractors. We had another set of lists kind of for us, and things were being managed and negotiated through an IT project manager. But things didn't always get to where one version of the list got to one set of folks, and we got a different one, and then folks who were on the administrative side maybe didn't remember or didn't see the latest version of the list. So we are still, there's some, for us, there's some gray areas in terms of things that should have been done now as not, and we're working through those, but it would be good if there's just one list, one list all the time.
Right.
So if you can do that, that's very good. Number two, and this is kind of something I think across the board, when you get ready to do RED, make sure that you have access to your data and access to where you're receiving the data from. This is a thing that we continue, as folks say, as we get requests, okay, let's add this in. It was hard to, okay, you need access for yourself, for you, the developer, so that you can actually see the data. You need access for in our case, for our RED ETL server, access for the account that runs the watcher service to go and get that data. And then you might need it for everybody else in your group. So we ended up eventually getting service accounts that, Active Directory service accounts that handle all of our developers as people, and then one that handles our ETL server so that we can run things through our RED scheduler. And so once we finally got that process set up, it's great to be able to say, okay, I need access to both of these things, to both of these accounts, and go with it. Because the one thing that we had to get used to, or one thing I've had to explain to folks, is the expectation has been, I can give you a layout, now you can go do work on this and be ready to go once I give you data. And RED does not do that well at all. Especially if it's flat file data, you need to have the data to start running it in RED. And so that's been a little bit of a shift where I say, no, I can't really do anything with this. Once you give me the data in this, then I'm ready to go. And then it goes very, very quickly. But that's been a thing. So just getting all that together. And then number three is the iterative process. And so I was talking about this a little bit earlier. It's okay for you to start down doing a loading process, doing a table, bringing it into your data warehouse, and then learning something after the fact and go, oh, I probably need to do this a different way. And I've done that many, many times where I'll just start down, just getting things moving, and then once I get to a point of, I think I really do need to go and put a stage table in here. I really do need to have a view to relook at this if I'm going to do change detection later on it. And so it's okay. And I know one of the things that I have to explain to folks is, okay, well, you should just be able to give me some pictures and just go, step by step, and this is what I do when I do RED. And really, it's more of a, you can learn certainly tasks to do each time, and this is the way you do it, but it's how you combine all of those tasks and in what order, and recognizing, okay, this is what I need to do. And so that's where I've been more leaning towards and trying to give instruction, is not so much a, you click this and you do this and you do that, but read and recognize from the situation that you're having to work through what you need to do inside of RED. And so that, to me, that's been the stuff that I wish I would have had, or that's what I've developed over time, is the, okay, well, how do I know what to do as opposed to just what to do? So,
Right.
Anyway.
Hey, yeah, Ray, maybe just talking a little bit about training. How has that gone, or and what do you guys do to bring people up to speed with training? And what are your thoughts about training?
Okay, so I think the RED training has been just fine like I said, in terms of, okay, this is how you make a load table, this is how you do this, and that's great. And it's more of integrating the, okay, this is a thing that I need to do. How do I recognize I need to do step A, step B, step C? So that's been the only thing. But then again, too, that's a tough thing, because different places, different agencies do things differently and have different standards. But just trying to fit it into our framework. As far as new folks go, we've been pretty fortunate. We haven't had that much staff turnover yet in the last year and a half. So most of the folks who are here got the WhereScape training that we had. But that said, when folks have questions or when we're bringing things in, I'm giving them sort of experience, that wisdom that I've learned over time, and handing them stuff of, okay, well, here's things you need to know about, little tips and tricks of how to get past a certain error, or, oh, when you see this, you need to know, you need to go look at that. And that seems to have helped quite a bit when I can go in and just say, oh, yeah, that's your problem, and, oh, okay, and then they file that away, and now they can get over that hurdle more quickly and more efficiently each time they see it.
Great, great. Well, great. Thanks, Ray. I really appreciate your time here, and we've got some minutes for any questions from the audience, or unless you have any other thing that you'd like to add, Ray. I think we're ready to start handling some questions if the audience has some. Yeah. Going to hang on a little bit
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to mention that Q&A box is available to everybody in attendance. That icon, sort of in the middle of the series of icons in orange down below. The call-out box.
Yep. Yeah, and actually, I have several questions, Judd. And actually, one question is really how is the business team or the non-IT part of the project, how are they involved in the process? Were they involved?
They were involved in the selection of the tables, and they're involved when we're going to do anything as far as loading or putting data into the EDW. And so a lot of times it's done through tickets, through requests that they make, and then sometimes we'll take those requests and then sort of do some requirements gathering as they say, okay, well, I need something that does this. And so that's really getting that discussion of, okay, what are your needs? What do we need to do? And then we'll be able to tell them, okay, well, this is what you want to do, and no, we can't do that because that table doesn't exist yet in the EDW. So if you can get approval to get that data put in, we'll do it. And then so they go from there. Sometimes it's about sometimes we'll get a request that's coming in, and then maybe we'll say, okay, we can do this for you one time. Is this something that you need to do more often than just once? And then we might suggest doing an SSRS, and sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes they might have this huge request that they might write a couple times a year, and they say, oh, we want this as an SSRS, and I'll go, okay, are you going to interact with it? Are you going to query it in a way that you want to look at it now for like one county and then look at it again in a couple minutes for another county? Oh, no, I just want a spreadsheet. Okay, well, maybe it might be better that we just run this and have this query saved and just do this because you're going to run it twice a year, and this is going to take 20 minutes even inside of Teradata with all the things we have to go and join through. Maybe putting it out on a server and doing SSRS isn't the best thing, tying up that resource too much. And so a lot of times we get a request, and then we can work with them through that. And then sometimes there's other joint meetings, but they're the ones, business users are driving what we do inside the EDW and how we do any sort of data analysis or enable them to do the data analysis that they need to do.
Got it. Hey, Ray, does the state use both 3D and red? That's another question I have. Or are you just mainly using red?
Mainly using red. I dabble with 3D, but a lot of the times we are importing in data that has already been set up either in a source system or it's been set up in another database. And usually the instruction is to put it in as it is, because we will get other existing code that relies on that structure. And so one of the examples is our normalized system for doing right now. It's intended to be a hub application for everything, but right now it's handling our motor vehicle dealers. And so if we get things from them, they're going to refer to particular tables and particular spots. And so if we're going to translate it over into the EDW, those tables need to exist as named. So that's what we're doing, is bringing those in. But then as we get those things in natively, as it becomes obvious, then we start making views based on that structure that could help drive getting information out. Like inside, we have things to try to help join all the identifiers together for our transactions that we do for motor vehicle registration and licensing. And so having those views handy saves lots of time in development and in processing time, because we have those joins already stored in the EDW ready to go, because they're always going to be the same thing. all the time. So code reuse when you can.
Got it. Great. Looking for any other questions. Happy to field them. We'll hang on a little bit here, and then anyone has a question, happy to field it. And if not, I'll hand it back. I'll hand it back, or I guess maybe I won't hand it back. I'll just go ahead and we'll just end the call here. But if there aren't any other questions, you can also send them to us.
Well, I thank you, Ray. I did see a note in there, and among your notes, that you were loading something like 900 tables each night.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a big process, or is that all automated?
No, it's all automated. It's all set up on jobs inside our enterprise scheduler, and so those go through each night, and they load, and and they all run every night on a scheduled basis. So that's how often we're updating the data in a lot of these tables, because they are on live systems. When you think about it, we have vehicles that are titled and registered every day. People renew their driver's license on a daily basis. Things happen. You have tickets. You have people who receive citations and other things, and so that all. That's all a live and everyday process. And so in order to keep our data warehouse as up to date as possible, those things have to get updated accordingly.
Yeah. So does this entire process help with the BI reporting optimization in terms of speed and performance?
Well, on some systems compared to the way it was done, yes, because especially for DB2, some of those instances are so large, they were only, if they were going to ask questions or get data for analysis, they would have to go to a sort of archived once a month refresh of that data. So like here we are at the end of the month, or sorry, it's November 1st, but if I wanted to know about October business, I wouldn't be able to find that out until later the next week, and when the run for that table got refreshed. Now we can answer those questions the next day. So that's an improvement just from a speed of being able to access information, because we're making those calls, we're updating the EDW during the night when that system can be hit for queries.
I do have one new question, just talking about the performance of systems, Ray. What's the performance of this, compared to what it was, or what you would have expected in the past? And obviously that response you've just given, where now you get it the next day, that's obviously a performance question. But anything else you'd like to add about the performance of your solutions?
No, again, it's just you're able to get things that maybe you weren't able to get before, because the SQL joins or the logic that you can write with Teradata SQL, it wasn't available, or is not. It's unwieldy to write in a COBOL or culprit setting. So you've got things like that make it where you can answer questions you couldn't answer before, and you can answer the questions that you did before much faster. Just from a querying perspective, using the data warehouse.
Got it. Great. Anything else, Judd? I'm going to hand it back to you. I think we're at the end of our the question pipe is drained. Really appreciate it, Ray. Yeah, thank you very much.
That was terrific insight. We will make sure that we update the Teradata WhereScape landing page with some further information, and there is further information there in the way of data sheets, other customer success stories. A terrific resource of information is there on that WhereScape partner page found on Teradata.com. So I encourage everybody to look us up. Feel free to ask us any follow-up questions you might have. And a special thanks to Ray. I really appreciate those insights. Terrific interview. And thank you, too.
Yeah,
Jim.
thank you very much, Ray.
No problem.
Take care, all.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.